What's up, Josh?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
I'm very glad to be able to do it. Thanks to your PR, I've been able to discover you guys, and it's amazing to see what you got going on here in 2021. I mean, between a brand new album with Zodiac, and then also some brand new songs that just came out not too long ago. I mean, it seems like it's a good year for you guys.
Yeah, it's been super busy despite a year of lockdown. It was pretty odd but very productive.
Oh, it's so great to see that. And of course, the first thing that came out this year is the amazing album Zodiac, which of course is available now. And I just keep going back and listening to it, and I love the progression of it. I mean, I love how it really ebb and flows together and how it's all connected thematically. I mean, it's just, you guys have put out a very solid album here in 2021.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. We put a lot of time into it, and it took its time writing itself, I think, but we're pretty happy with how it came out.
Awesome. So, with that in mind, like, how did this idea for Zodiac come to be?
We so Alex, the guitar player, and me had we were writing one day and kind of had this idea of doing some sort of concept that was something everybody could understand. I think we were listening back to thinking back to like Gustav Holst's The Planets, that like classical suite. And I always thought that was really interesting. It's something that everybody kind of has an idea of, like Elements. You could do, I know there's been a couple concept records around Elements and things like that. We're all big prog fans, so there's a lot of our favorite albums were conceptual of some kind, and so we had talked about what we were going to do, and once we had decided on the Zodiac theme, the songs just started crafting themselves, and so it was kind of nice confirmation there that we knew what we wanted to do. But that's kind of the origin of it.
Oh, that's just so cool. And making it your own too. I mean, it's just like it's so cool. I mean, with just like I said before, discovering you guys with Zodiac, I really appreciate the style that you guys have. I mean, you can hear so many different kinds of influences, but it sounds like yourselves as well.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're very widely, we have a huge palette of what we're into. I mean, literally all over the map. I think we fall into, ourselves genre wise. It's pretty easy to fall into somewhere between progressive rock and metal, but I mean, there's so many things that we like. So yeah, I'm sure there's moments that you can catch a handful of these influences, but we're really all over the map.
And I appreciate that so much. And it really does show that when you have as many colors as you do on your palette, you're able to express yourselves in almost any way rather than just like pigeonholing yourself into one style.
Yeah, yeah. We never we have a philosophy that I think it's hard to stay in this philosophy, but it's important to. And the philosophy is finish the song. And sometimes you write a song and you're like, I don't know if that sounds like us. But it's important to finish the song, because I don't know especially if we have a wide range within us, sure, maybe some of them might not all make what we're doing, but they're all kind of in varying directions. Maybe it's just a side thing that gets released. Maybe it's an idea for a totally different project. Maybe it does work for the band, but if you don't finish the song, you're losing out on an opportunity to be creative. So that's our that's our philosophy.
Oh, so cool. So thinking about that, I mean, obviously with having that in mind to be able to finish a song, no matter what direction that it's going in and just wanting to see how it's going to progress, how does it start off like being able to write a song?
Um, we have a pretty odd writing method. Everybody in the band is is creative in very different ways in how they execute. Historically, with us, we've always the idea usually starts between one of the guitar players, Alex, and myself. Everybody in the band plays guitar. Everybody plays keyboards to some extent. Everybody can play bass. I think almost everybody can play drums. So it's really writing with us is everybody's basically got a station, and So our writing process is usually we'll come into I've got my house is our studio, which is where I'm at right now. But
It's a cool setup, by the way.
thanks, man. Like everybody's got their rig, and I've got like kind of a lounge space outside of the studio, and so everybody finds a location, and then there's this room is actually the center jam point. So I'll generally be here, and sometimes somebody else will be working in here. We'll be all spread out, and then we'll come together with an idea, and then spread out and come together. So I don't know if that's unique or if that's common, but it feels a little unusual, but it just works for us. So
And that's what's important. I mean, when you can find something that works for you and you're able to, make that formula of what can be a song, no matter how it starts off with the writing. I mean, as long as like some ideas can come of it, it's a great thing. And knowing that you guys are able to know so many different kinds of instrumentation rather than just your own, I think is so incredible as well.
yeah, I think everybody has their language that they speak. I think some of our guitar players, the guitar is their native tongue, if that's the easiest way to describe it. But piano is really mine, actually. And but like having those other influences really helps us be able to be creative in a way that they're thinking about what I'm going to have to play if they end up creating a drum part, or that becomes a spark. And I'm thinking about what they're going to have to play, and that being conscious of everybody else's skills, strengths, and kind of what you should leave out for the other guys to come up with has made it a really interesting process.
Oh, that's so awesome. So, going back to what you were just talking about with being able to finish the song with Zodiac in particular, was there like any songs in particular that didn't sound like it was going to work out, but did eventually make it to the album and find a right place?
Yes, we actually have a few of the songs we threw out full ideas. Like we get through Scorpio is one of those. We have three different versions of Scorpio. We have three different versions of Libra. Totally different. I'm not even like the organization is different, like completely different songs. And Scorpio is one where we had a song that we loved for Scorpio, or at least it was half of a song, like it was like the main components, verse, chorus. And we got to like that point, and it was like, this doesn't sound like Scorpio. Like we like the song, but it doesn't sound like Scorpio. And that was a really weird thing to wrap our head around. I think it probably feels akin to what, Broadway writers or playwrights, screenplay, people scoring a screenplay. I'd imagine it feels very similar to that, where you start analyzing something beyond the song. Does this actually align with the visual, or the mental visual? And that Scorpio one, we were like, this just doesn't sound like what we were going after. But as we found out, once we got to the end, we actually ended up using that song as the 13th sign, Ophiuchus, which is like a highly disputed, like whether that's really a Zodiac sign or not. But it was a fun way to do a B-side, because we really loved that song. We really loved the way it turned out. So that's how that one became that. But yeah, we were very careful about making sure that we were always looking back to our inspiration, like the sign inspiration, what a Pisces sounded like, what an Aquarius sounded like, to us in our interpretation of it. So there were a few times where we weren't sure if the songs were going to get written, but we eventually got there with all of them.
Oh, it's amazing how that can work, isn't it? It's just like you have an idea at first, and then it can completely change into a completely different song. And, sometimes throwing that song out and it works out better as something else. And, it's really cool to see with like Libra and Scorpio. It's just like you have like so many different ideas of what it could be until you can find the right one. I mean, there's no limit to options.
Yeah, it was looking at what the signs were supposed to be. In a way, it made writing very simple, because we were just trying to do the purest form of whatever our interpretation was, but it was still our interpretation. I think anybody could write a Zodiac concept record and with their interpretation. I think if you had somebody who wrote happier music writing a Zodiac concept album. They'd look at like the positive traits of some of the signs. We went the total opposite. We looked at like, you know, the self-destructive traits of every Zodiac sign, like all the negatives, which made it really fun to release during the rollout of a pandemic, as crazy as that sounds. Not trying to be insensitive to the struggles everybody's gone through over the last, 18 months, but it was a really interesting month by month interpretation, even though it was totally unintended to align with that. It just happened that way. And yeah, you could interpret it any way you want, but for us, it was trying to align with that darker vision, that more negative looking vision. Made it a lot of fun.
Oh, totally. And it's funny for me, it's like right now we're in Leo and I am a Leo. So when I listen to the song, it does fit. It does fit.
Well, happy proximity birthday. I don't happy sign month. I don't know when your birthday is, but
it's coming up on the 19th.
Nice. Greg in our band is a Leo too. We gave extra weight to the members whose sign it actually was. So Greg had kind of final say on anything that happened in Leo, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too, if that played into it at all. It's cool to see that it did.
Yeah, I think we probably the truest representation within the band in terms of how those signs rolled out was Gemini. Alex, our other guitar player, is a Gemini, and Alex is kind of the origin point of a lot of creative ideas. He's really the guy that starts. He's like a spark guy. He's the guy that starts a lot of it. And one of the things we looked at with Gemini was probably nothing will ever be finished. You're probably going to have a gazillion ideas and nothing will ever be finished, and that will plague you for the rest of your life. So one of the things we did with Gemini was basically it just doesn't really have an ending. It just kind of wanders off into the distance, and that's really Alex is a super creative guy. He's probably got 500 ideas that never became anything, and it's so true to his personality. So that was a fun part of looking at these things and being like, yeah, that's kind of true, isn't it? And really helps you realign yourself with your friends and bandmates.
Oh, totally. So, thinking about that as well too, I mean, what was it like the first time that you were able to listen to the album from start to finish?
It was really heavy. It was unbelievable to actually get to the finish line. We had the demos already, and it's one thing to hear them in scratch form, and our demos are good. I mean, I've got a nice setup here. Like our demos are actually really good sounding. But when we got in the studio with Shane at Architect Studios in Butler, New Jersey, it was hearing them actually come to fruition. Honestly, half the band didn't even hear the vocals until the actual studio session. We stay out of it. Like I'm kind of on the music side, and Rich and Greg are more on the vocal side, and I stayed out of it, and Alex stayed out of it. Andrew kind of weaves himself in between. He's our bass player, but hearing it all come together and going through that journey was really unbelievable. And I found myself listening to the finished product, which we had really ready for a year before we released. But I would listen to it for enjoyment, which I think that's not an easy thing for me to do for my own music. I think I reached the finish line and then I don't want to hear it ever again. And hearing it in its full was really, really amazing. And it's a very, to me, I hope it's this way to other people, but to me, it's a very visceral album. I think it's gonna make you think about a lot of things. It's gonna make you think about how you are. It's gonna make you think about how your friends are, your family, life in general, and it doesn't end on a happy note. So I don't think you can finish the record and like not have questions. That's kind of my feeling, and that's kind of where we felt like it was too.
And again, that's another reason why I do appreciate the album so much, is because it does tackle like real things that are going on. And like you were mentioning before, it's like some people could look at the Zodiac signs and just think about how fun and happy it is. But, there's a lot of negative traits that can come amongst that as well too, just like that yin and yang kind of thing going on. And, sometimes it takes that negative to really be able to appreciate the positive and vice versa.
Yeah, it seemed like even though it wasn't intended to be released, on we released it basically right as the world shut down. We decided, all right, cool. We don't know what the future is, so we're just gonna let this thing go, month by month as the Zodiac progressed. And we didn't really know what was going to happen, but for us, it was just it felt it felt right to like align it with these, I don't know, these negative connotations. The world's not happy right now. I don't know if the world has ever been happy. I was thinking about that today, but the world's not a very happy place right now, and I think this kind of helped soundtrack the discontent of 2020, 2021 a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's one of those albums that, it's like, even though it wasn't planned to happen the way that it did, I think it truly fits because, it's just like there's so many emotions that are going on throughout the world right now. And, especially depending on how you are as a person. I mean, if you're going through like any physical or mental struggles with everything that's going on, it's just like hearing positivity isn't going to necessarily cheer you up. Sometimes you want something that's very relatable. Sometimes you just want to know that there's other people that are going through negative things or have negative traits, so it doesn't feel like it's just yourself. So when you listen to the album and, it's when you do dive in through the Zodiac signs and you're able to discover all of these different traits, the more you listen to the lyrics, the more relatable it really can be.
Yeah, we've kind of felt the same way too. I always like, I think it's the old metalhead thing. I think a lot of metalheads are pretty happy people, and it's I guess the old saying was it's because we listen to super heavy stuff, and that helps us balance ourselves out. I wonder if that's the same thing here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it really can be. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like again, it's just like it's great to see an album like this coming out, and and just like the style of music that you guys do, and like just like having the album ready, like a year before it came out, and you're able to have these songs ready. I mean, I can only imagine that you guys are like already gunning for the next album and getting ready for that songwriting process.
Yeah, we're writing actively now. I think the idea of playing live is I mean, playing live is awesome. It's what we love to do, but um, we're not we're not in that place right now where that's really a priority. If we get we've had talks about jumping on certain tours, and if that comes to fruition, we will. But for right now, writing the next thing is the most important part of it, and trying to follow this up. So
Oh, definitely. And I'm excited to see where you guys go because I mean, especially with Zodiac in particular, it's just like I mentioned before. I mean, there's so many sides and traits that are shown off musically, what's going on within the songs. Like, I'm excited to see where it's going to go. Is it going to get heavier? Is it going to get softer? Is it going to go into more different musical genres? I mean, there's so many ways that it could go. And as a listener and a new fan, I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
thanks. Yeah, I think the answer to all of those questions is yes. Is it going to be heavier? Yes. Is it going to be lighter? Yes. Is it going to go to different genres? Probably. I don't know. We're writing it now, and we're really just scratching the surface. We've got a dozen, 2 dozen ideas already, trying to make them have legs. And walk.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool. And the live shows and the touring and all that stuff will come at the right time. I mean, obviously, it's just like with the world shut down and slowly opening back up. Like some states are allowing like full-blown festivals going on right now, and I and of course the Delta variant that's going across right now, it's like it's affecting people who even got vaxxed already. It's like it can come back and hit that. So we never know if we're going to have to go back into a second full-on quarantine or not. So rather than just like a sitting at home, just like waiting for the day to be able to go back out and play shows and touring again, I'm glad to see that you guys are actually taking that active approach and like continuing with the songwriting, because if the chemistry is there, if you want to write songs, I mean, write as many as you can and see what's going to work out.
Yeah, that's where we're trying to go. That's the most important thing for us to do right now. And the live show will, when it happens, and it will happen, it's a matter of time, whether it's now or whether it's years, depending on what happens with the health of the world. I mean, we'll be ready. We're ready now, but the idea of the most important thing we could be doing is writing, and I think we focused on that heavily over the last year. That's what I feel like a lot of people in our genre. I mean, there's obviously a lot of the prolific writers, but like people just want more, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just is, and so for us, it's like, all right, well, let's just keep churning out songs and try to make people feel something more more than we have already. So
Oh, absolutely. So, thinking about that as well too. I mean, obviously with the songwriting and, being able to have some brand new music out, well, for the fans, brand new music coming out in 2021. What with yourself musically, have you been like practicing anything new? Have you been learning anything new? Like outside of songwriting, have you been doing anything like that musically?
learning things new. I'm trying to. This sounds crazy, but I'm actually trying to um, reconnect with practice, because throughout the pandemic, I was actually uh, by my own doing, I was kind of displaced from my house, and we moved. My wife and I moved out of my house in March of 2020 into a house with family. It made more, pandemic stuff. It's a longer story, but
Sure.
it made more sense to move in, and we actually rented out my house that we were living in, that I'm back in now. And we realized like 6 months into that situation that we were going to have to end up going back to our house. So I let the 1 year lease expire, and then we came back. But I had no place to put my drums during that time, which oddly enough was when we were releasing Zodiac. So I was moving around my recording rig from random locations just to do. We did a lot of like live from home things, like a lot of bands did, which was a lot of fun. But I was basically a nomad at that time, so practice was limited. We've been back in our house for about 4 months now, so it's amazing how much you lose from not playing every day. And so I feel like I'm catching back up. But things for me, I think I'm trying to get back to quicker speed on the drums. That's really the biggest thing for me right now. I feel like I lost a lot of speed, and trying to get back to that. I don't think anybody would notice, but I do, and I don't like that.
Oh, I can totally relate because like right now I'm living in a one bedroom apartment and I don't have a studio right now, so my drums are just sitting home with me stacked up, and I'm just wishing I could set my kit up again and just being able to play because I can feel the rust on me. I mean, I got like the practice pad, so I'm able to still do that kind of stuff, but I just want to be able to get back into that situation of being able to get behind my kit again, get that rust off, and just being able to progress.
Yeah,
So yeah, I totally feel
every
you.
drummer knows the struggle. Every drummer knows the struggle. We've all been there. So it's challenging. I mean, I when my wife and I, we had our 1 bedroom apartment days and our 2 bedroom apartment days, and even when we had a little bit larger apartment, you're in an apartment, so drumming is public enemy number one to apartment life. So it certainly helps with the writing. I play guitar and piano, so that helps too. But yeah, rust. I feel like every year that passes, the rust comes back quicker if I don't play more regularly. It's really, really incredible how quickly you lose it. So yeah, practice pads are great, but they totally don't fill the same feeling for sure.
Oh, it's so true. And thinking about that too, it's like I keep looking back at that kit. Like, what is that setup? I really dig it from back here.
So I've got, yeah, I don't know how clear it would be. So I've got, I'm a Pearl guy. I've been a Pearl guy for a long time.
I am as well.
But my first kit was an export. Everybody's deal. My first kit was an export,
Me too.
and I love that thing. I bought like every drum size ever. I thought I was Mike Portnoy and had drums everywhere. And so I bought my Maple Masters kit. Gosh, 15 plus years ago. And actually, funny story with this kit. So a couple years after I bought it, they discontinued the MMX and they discontinued that color and Emerald Fade, which you probably can't see from the purple lights, but it's green. And I had like every size drum. I've got 2 bass drums. I've got 8 through 16. I never had an 18-inch floor tom. I literally 15 years after I got my kit, I literally 3 months ago sourced an 18-inch bass drum from a guy in California, and it was like chaos to get it out here. He didn't want to ship, and I had a friend in LA meet him and pick it up, and it was crazy. But that's my kit. That's one of 2 kits. I've got a Crystal Beat acrylic kit, which I love. I love that kit. I can't believe Pearl prices it so affordably. That thing rocks. And that compared to the Maple kit, it really allows me to do anything that I want to studio wise. So that's my kit. Right now I've got kind of a, 1 up, 2 down coated heads. So that's just because of the song we've been writing, but I've normally been like a 3 up, 3 down. I use the Portnoy reference, but I remember being a kid and watching, the one live from New York, and he's got the purple monster and playing Change of Seasons. I must have watched that 1,000. I think Change of Seasons is like my favorite Dream Theater song ever.
Me too.
And I studied his setup so much, and I've always been fascinated with big kits. So even though it doesn't really look like that right now, other than cymbals, I'm definitely a big kit guy.
Oh, that's incredible. And it's like I'm looking back at my kit right now. It's Pearl Export. Came out the same year I was born in '88, and it's like the 80s hairband sizes. I got 12, 13, and 14-inch rack toms, and then I got 16 and 18 floor toms, and then 2 22-inch bass drums, and then I got like 3-4 snares that I go in between. One of them including the Mike Portnoy Melody Master, the 12-inch one.
That's a great snare.
Oh, absolutely.
Great snare. Yeah, the big drums. I've never been a big drum guy, but now that I've got a few of my setups, I'm starting to have bigger drum sets. I've got a 12, 13 that I'm using from time to time. And obviously the 80s, it was kind of all about that style, but there is a great sonic characteristic to having those big drums. They're awesome. They sound huge on recording. So that's great, man. Old 80s Export, that's amazing. That's such a classic sound.
Oh, totally. And sometimes like I even use it as like a 4-piece too. Like I'll have like the 12-inch rack tom, and then I have like the 14-inch on the bottom side of my Icon rack, and I use that as the floor tom because it basically is the size of a floor tom. 14 by 11. It's just huge. So it's like if I need to ever play a show where I don't have much room, like I could just have like a small rack around me, 12, 14, and then the cymbals and snare and bass, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, the rack's been really key to us between recording and touring. I've actually got my mics on the rack. Overheads are on the rack. Ride and hi-hat mic are on the rack. The cable loom is on the rack. I think Pearl did such a good job making a sturdy rack. I've had that thing forever, and I just leave it all the time. So when I moved, even though I moved this big kit around, everything sits in my main 2 rack segments, and I can move it really easy despite how large it is. My bandmates don't complain, which is rare, I think. When you're touring with a big kit, your bandmates give you crap all the time, but this kit and this setup has been very good to me. I've been a loyal Pearl player since the beginning. So
Oh, yeah, same here. I started off with Pearl, and so many of my favorite drummers were playing Pearl, and then I found my export kit for $500, like for all the drums, and then I was able to buy my own cymbals and snares and everything that came along with that. But at some point, I do want to upgrade. Those Maple kits, for example, like you have, are just an incredible sound, and I'd love to be able to have that and then have the export too. So it's like it's 2 different variations on sounds, like you got going on with the Crystal Beat, which is another incredible kit.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I bought my kit long ago enough before I started having connections with other people and connections with manufacturers and stuff, I think now that I look at drum set prices, I'm so shell shocked by what these things cost. I'm like, the Crystal Beat's actually a good deal, I think, compared to, I must have paid, $1,200 for my masters at
Yeah.
that time. And now it's, you buy a reference, it's $4,000 to get a 4-piece. And I don't know. That's a challenging part of being a drummer these days. They're expensive.
Oh yeah, and if you were to get like those acrylic kits from like, the custom shops or something like that, you'd easily be paying like 3-4 times the price that you would compared to the crystal beads.
Yeah. And it's plastic. It's essentially plastic. So it kind of feels dumb to be paying stupid money for a plastic kit. But man,
It looks so cool.
It looks so cool. It looks so cool. It's such a great kit.
Oh, that's awesome. And thinking about that too, I mean, like I really am digging the setup, and I can see the emerald green. I mean, that looks so cool seeing that green there. With the cymbals, like what kind of setup do you got with the cymbals?
So I got hooked up. One of my former drum students who got in a band, got signed, started touring, turned me on to this South Carolina brand called Saluda.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've been playing Saluda since 2017, and they've been awesome. I was a Sabian guy before that. I was kind of going back and forth between Sabian and Meinl, and Saluda kind of felt like everything that I wanted to change combined with everything that I liked about the cymbals that I was using previously. And because they're domestic and because they're small, you actually have a lot of bit of room to create a cymbal sound within their lines that you like. So I, talking to Jamie over there, I was just like, I want this and this and this, and I want this crash to have, a really thin taper at the end. And I want, my ride, I spent some time like really, really figuring out what I wanted in that ride. Really, really thick center, unlathed bell, and then a really thin taper on the edge so I can wash with it if I want. And I mean, you can't do that. Like, I mean, I guess if you're massive, you could go do that with Zildjian when you're creating your like signature line. But to be able to do that with a local, more local, domestic company for anything was a really, really powerful tool for me. And since I record at home, I know kind of what I want them to sound under the mics. So it was really, really useful for me. I just feel so much more control tonally using Saluda than anybody else, for sure.
Yeah, I've always heard great things about Saluda, and like following up on their YouTube channel, it's like they're always coming up with like these cool custom ideas and all that stuff. I mean, it's just like it feels like any kind of sound that you're looking for, they'll be able to find a way to be able to make it for you.
Yeah. It's I mean, we're creatives at the end, at the end of the day, we're creative. So when we're creating music, when I'm picking out the drums, my cymbals, I want to be able to be creative with helping them match what I'm going for sonically, which is not, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to invent something or a cymbal sound that's not been invented, but how to, I know how I would refine certain things to be more of what I like. And it's just so easy to do with them. They've been great. Their support's great. They ship cymbals fast. I mean, they've just been a rock star of a company. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm brand loyal for sure.
Oh, that's so cool. And yeah, I mean, I keep seeing it. It's just like it looks like such a killer setup. And then when I listen to Zodiac and you actually hear it being played, I mean, it's just so much incredible sounds. And of course, a great drummer being able to play that album as well too. But it's just like being able to hear the tones of the drums, hearing the tones of the cymbals, and the whole atmosphere of everything that's going on with the songs. It just feels like everything that you got going on with it just fits so perfectly.
Yeah, we took a lot of time. I appreciate that. That means a lot. We took a lot of time to get the drum sounds right. Shane Stanton, our producer, he's a drummer, which is great. It's great for me. And Shane really he really understood that we wanted the songs, the way it was recorded, to be characteristically similar to the song. So we changed drum sizes, we changed drum heads, we changed cymbals, snare drums constantly. I mean, I used probably 10 different snare drums on this record, and he really understood what we were going for. And it wasn't like, okay, set the kit up, put the mics on and let's track the record. We really went song by song and made it matter. Everything mattered.
Yeah, and it's great to see that you were able to have so many options in your arsenal as well too. I mean, when you're able to have like 10 different drums for the album and you're able to get so many different sounds, from the material, the sizes, the hoops that you're using, the heads that you're using. I mean, especially with the snare, I mean, you really want to make that your sound because it's like that's one of, if not the most important part of a kit is the snare. And just like making sure that you have the right sound for the right song is so important, especially in that recording setting.
Right. We didn't want to lean on samples. I know that's a neat, what people's opinion of samples has kind of done this over the last 20 years, and it's an inevitable part of recording these days. But we wanted to make sure that our acoustic sounds were good enough, song by song, and that they mattered. And obviously I think everybody uses some samples to a degree to kind of fine tune the sounds that you're recording, but a lot of what, not a lot, the overwhelming majority, 95% of what you're hearing drum wise on Zodiac is that drum, that hit, that song, that head. Like everything is pretty true to form of what was actually played. So
Oh, totally. And that's so relatable too when it comes into the samples and everything. Like I'm thinking back to one of my previous bands, which was way on the heavy side, and the rest of the band really wanted me to play with triggers and only use samples. But I love so much of the bass drum tone. I love being able to have that real tone. So we kind of went 50-50 on it, and we kind of did like a mesh where it's like it's the real sound and the trigger combined to try to get the best of both worlds. And that is the good thing about like technology. I mean, when you want to be able to have like a real kit and the real sounds, you can still do that. But just like in a setup, whether you're like recording demos or you just want something to be like machine perfect, you got the samples and quantizing and everything that go along with that, or you can do something where it's like 50-50 and you can like make that perfect sound.
Yeah, you want to make sure it's right for the song. But I think we're getting into a era of music where speed of release is so important, that and obviously the technology is incredible. So sample technology is amazing, but because everything has to move so fast, everybody's default is, all right, we'll just mic it up. We're going to throw samples on it and whatever. And I like, not that I resist samples. I know why people use them. I know why we use them in the past and why they're great and why they're efficient, but I still believe in the art of trying to get a great natural drum sound, and we can augment it however we want, but let's get that starting point. Let's get that foundation amazing. And I think that goes a really, really long way.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel exactly the same way when it comes to my playing too. It's like I want to have that real foundation, making sure that I have everything the way that I want it to be, getting the sounds that I'm looking for, and just being able to mic it up that way. I mean, if I have to use samples or something like that, absolutely. I mean, it can be used for the perfect situations and the right situations, like you were mentioning. But being able to have that solid foundation matters more than anything.
Yeah, I think the most underrated recording thing for rock and metal, especially if you're playing a lot of double bass, I think people always go to mic up the single kick just for the recording. It's going to be easier. It'll all sound the same. 2 bass drums sounds great recorded. And we did that for almost the whole Zodiac record. Every song that had a lot of double bass was with 2 kicks, and it sounds different. It just inherently sounds different. It sounds bigger. The heads have a different response because they're not getting double hit by the beater, and it came out great. And I've had previous recording experiences where I really wanted to bring 2 kicks, and the engineer was like, no, it's going to be, you can't get them perfectly in tune. I'm like, that's kind of the point. It sounds fuller. It's like you double track guitar. I mean, it's kind of the same. Just so that's kind of the analogy. But
Yeah.
I fought hard for that. And with Shane, it was no brainer. He was like, yeah, perfect. This is going to be great. We'll tune the drums up. They'll be close. It's going to sound awesome. And it did.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna be asking about that too, because I love the bass drum sound that's coming off there, and it does sound so full. And it's just like I don't really hear that when you do it with a single kick for exactly what you're talking about. When you have two bass drums and they do sound a little bit different, I mean, you're covering so much more frequency and you're able to get that great sound coming out of it. It just sounds so much richer and fuller. And I appreciate that you actually went the two bass drum route.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass for the engineers, but as long as they're on board, we'll roll with it.
And they're getting paid too, so
That's right.
oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, again, I love the sounds that you're getting out of that kit, and of course everything that you're able to play on the kits as well too, and of course the rest of the band and being able to fill out everything with the band. I mean, it's just so cool to see what you guys have done with Zodiac, and being able to release the bonus track as well, and already into the writing stage for the next release. I think there's going to be so many great things that are going to be coming up, especially when the world gets back to some kind of normalcy. But even if that does take a bit, knowing that you guys are working on the next album, progressing as a band, and just showing that you're still around, that you're making great music, and there's so much to look forward to. And being a new fan here, like I said before, it's like I can't wait to see what you guys are up to next. And it's just like, I know the tours will happen, I know that the one-off shows will happen, and of course I'm really looking forward to that next album as well too, because if Zodiac sounds the way that it does, I know the next album's only going to sound better.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're working hard, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, awesome. Well, I think that's a great note to end on, and I thank you very much for taking the time to do this. This has been awesome to be able to talk to you, talk about the music, talking about drums, talk about life. I mean, it's great to be able to do this kind of stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.